We are at the Microsoft Tech Days conference in Amsterdam, and I'm talking to David Chappell of Chappell and Associates from San Francisco. David, I attended some of your sessions today and yesterday. You talked about data science and machine learning yesterday and today as well a bit. Do you see this taking off, and do you think the developers community is embracing it?
Oh, I think absolutely. Machine learning is one of the hottest topics out there today. It's really changing lots of things about our world. Do developers embrace it? Separate question. Because machine learning technologies, many of them, are designed for data scientists, specialists, people who are hardcore in the statistics and so on that make up so much of the data science field. For developers, average, non-specialized developers, machine learning can be a bit of a challenge. It depends on tools. And there are some tools that are very much focused on developers. They don't assume specialized knowledge. There are others that are more for data scientists. So what I've seen so far is that while machine learning is having a big impact on our world, developers alone doing machine learning are still a small percentage of the total. It's going to get bigger, I think, but because the tools are mostly more specialized for data scientists, I see more people in that world doing machine learning than developers. Will that change? Yes, reasonably soon, I think, too.
Yeah, because there's an enormous shortage of data scientists. They're hard to get by. So it would be a great help if the tools could enable developers to start doing this kind of work. Do you see that happening shortly?
Oh, I think so, yeah, absolutely. If you look, for example, at Amazon Web Services, Amazon Machine Learning is a relatively simple machine learning technology designed for use by developers. Azure ML, the Microsoft Cloud machine learning solution, is more full-featured. It does more than Amazon ML, but it's also somewhat harder to use. It assumes more data science background. Probably over time, those two environments will converge and have similar kinds of services, where each one will have pure developer services and more specialized data science services.
You also talked about SQL a bit, and you consider this a stable, dominant technology. Well, of course it has been. In your opinion, is it here to stay?
Oh, absolutely. You know, the NoSQL movement, I think, is really important. It's brought a lot to the world. It's brought a lot of new ways to work with data. It solves problems in new ways and interesting ways that are much harder to solve in the classic relational SQL world. So NoSQL is really full of good ideas. But do these good ideas mean that relational databases in SQL are no longer good ideas? Of course not. The world of relational databases in SQL has, I think, a great future ahead of it. In fact, in my opinion, would be, if you can solve a problem using a relational database, you should. You ought to use NoSQL in those cases where you really can't use relational, and they certainly exist for reasons of scale or schema flexibility or something else. But the belief that somehow the rise of NoSQL means the end of SQL is just wrong.
Can you tell us a bit about this morning you had a talk about the Azure and Cloud Marketplace. Could you tell us a bit about the positioning of Azure when you compare it to, let's say, Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud Platform, or IBM?
Yeah, sure. I could discuss this for a long time. Let me try to be partially brief. What's happened here is that Amazon, Microsoft, and Google have all converged more or less on the set of services they offer. There's variation, but if you make a chart of what each one offers, they line up right down the line in so many areas. Not everywhere, but in so many areas. And so that's what happens as markets mature. You wind up with more similar products. So right now, Amazon is widely viewed as the market share leader. They've been the technology leader. It's less true than it used to be, because Microsoft, I think, has done an excellent job of catching up with them. Google is somewhat behind. Google started later, and the thing about Google is it's very unclear, at least to me, how fully serious Google is about this market. So we'll see what happens. I think Azure and Amazon are both safe choices going forward. They both have a strong future. They're both marked as leaders in Gartner's Magic Quadrants for some of the key services like Cloud IaaS and cloud storage and so on. They're the only leaders. So they're safe choices. Google, unclear. They may well survive in this space. They might not. I don't know. But you mentioned IBM. IBM, Hewlett-Packard, VMware, the classic enterprise vendors, they're not doing terribly well in this space. HP, in fact, has left the public cloud market, HPE as they're now called. IBM is still here, and they're out there with SoftLayer, other technologies, but it's really unclear whether they got much of a future here. I personally am skeptical. They're well behind Amazon and Azure. In the Gartner Magic Quadrant, again, they're sunk in the lower left. They're not doing terribly well. And it's hard to see how IBM is going to have the money to keep up with the massive investments required to do large-scale public cloud computing. So it's a time of huge change when the classic enterprise vendors we've all worked with for decades, if you're that old, are shifting. And going forward, we're going to see vendors like Amazon. We are seeing vendors like Amazon become more important. And Microsoft, who's always been, for many years, been a key enterprise vendor, will continue in that role, it appears, in this new cloud era.
Yeah, because you mentioned IBM, Hewlett-Packard, HP. These are companies that have dominated the market for decades, and now they seem to be, well, not dominant at all anymore in the cloud area. Do you see them catching up a bit, or through homegrown or through acquisitions, perhaps?
HP tried to enter the public cloud market, public cloud platform market, and they backed away. So I don't think they'll try again. They're focused now on private cloud, which is a good strategy, I think, and partnering with Microsoft, for example, with Azure. Good strategy. So they're not trying to compete head-on with Amazon or Azure, because they would not succeed. IBM is still trying to compete in that market to some degree. I am skeptical that they're going to catch up. Oracle has plans to compete. I am skeptical. VMware is in this market, public cloud platforms. I am skeptical. They're not doing all that well. And again, it's not just me. Look at the Gartner Magic Quadrants. These vendors just aren't up there in the leaders quadrant like Amazon and Azure. They're well behind. So I believe that most likely by far, it's the case that in public cloud platforms, the big markets, public cloud IaaS and cloud storage and so on, we know who the winners are. They're Azure and AWS and maybe Google.
Yeah, the threshold for new companies to enter this market is way too high, probably.
It's really high because the investment is astonishing. You know, these companies, Amazon, Microsoft, they're spending $1 billion on a data center, and they have dozens of them. So the investment is huge. The barriers to entry are substantial. So that's a big part of my skepticism, that we're well into this market, investments have been made. It seems likely to be too late for anybody else to make a serious run at this market, other than Amazon, Azure, and possibly Google.
Okay. Well, that's very clear for us. Thank you very much for the interview.
My pleasure. Good talking with you.
Okay, bye-bye.